Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire. Chapter 2 Summary. Banking Concept of Education. In the banking concept of education, education is viewed as the act of depositing values and knowledge, maintaining and stimulating the teacher-student contradiction. In this view, the person is not a conscious being, corpo consciente. He or she is rather the possessor of a consciousness, an empty mind, passively open to the reception of deposits of reality from the world outside. Their only possible actions is to receive the deposits, to file them away, or to keep them. In the end, it is the people themselves who are filed away, for apart from inquiry, apart from the praxis, individuals cannot be truly human, since knowledge only exists through invention and reinvention, in the inquiry human beings pursue in the road, with the road, and with each other. The teacher-student relationships are fundamentally narrative. It involves a narrating subject, the teacher, and patient, listening objects, the students. It speaks of reality as something petrified and static. The teacher's task is to fill the students with the contents of his narration. Words are emptied of their concreteness and become hollow, alienated, and alienating verbosity. One of the characteristics of this narrative education is the sonority of words, not their transforming power. The student records, memorizes, and repeats without perceiving the true significance of the statement. This narration, where the teacher is the narrator/subject, leads the students to memorize mechanically the narrated content. Education becomes an act of depositing, in which the students are the deposits and the teacher is the depositor. Knowledge is a donation by those who believe they are wise to those they think don't know anything. This negates education and knowledge as processes of inquiry and is a characteristic of the ideology of oppression. The teacher finds the reason for their existence in the total ignorance of the students, who themselves accept their own ignorance as the reason for the teacher's existence. There isn't companionship, since the teacher doesn't have any other role besides disciplining the entry to the road in the students. They must only do deposits of what they consider to be true knowledge. The banking concept of education controls thought and action, driving men to the adjustment to the road. The not being able to act, which causes suffering, also causes men the feeling of denying their impotence. When they submit themselves to a person or a group that has power and identify with them, the individual has the illusion that they act, when in reality they do nothing more than to submit themselves to the ones that act. To the dominating elites, this rebellion is a threat to them, and the cure for it is more domination. They plan on transforming the mentality of the oppressors and not the situation that oppresses them. The oppressed are called welfare recipients and are seen as individual cases of a sane society, which needs to adjust them by changing their mentality. As marginals, the solution for them would be to be integrated into the health society. They do not realize that the oppressed have always been incited. Their humanitarianism, and not humanism, is in preserving the situation that benefits them and allows for the upkeep of their fake generosity. Problem-posing education. Through dialogue, the problem-posing education surpasses the teacher-student contradiction. The teacher is no longer the only one to teach, but instead is also taught through dialogue with the student who, while learning, also teaches. Instead of being docile deposits, the students are now critical investigators with the teacher. The problem-posing education aims for the humanization of both teacher and student. It proposes to the men that their situation is the problem, not them. It wants the individuals that are being dominated to fight for their emancipation. The reflection proposed is over the individuals and their relations with the road, relations where conscience and road are simultaneous. It makes a permanent effort through which men realize, critically, the way they exist in the road with which and in which they find themselves. Their form of acting is in big part due to how they notice themselves in the road. Education remakes itself constantly in the praxis. In order to be, it must become. No one educates anyone. No one educates themselves. Men educate among themselves mediated by the road. The authentic liberation is praxis that implicates in man's action and in the reflection of the road to transform it. Full humanity. Any situation where some individuals prohibit others from engaging in the process of inquiry is one of violence. The pursuit of full humanity cannot be done in isolation. It must be done in fellowship and solidarity. No one can be authentically human while prohibiting others from being so. Chapter 3 Summary. Dialogue. There is no true word that is not praxis, as it includes action and reflection. To say a true word is to transform the road. On the other hand, the unauthentic word is unable to transform reality. When there is an action, it becomes alienating verbalism. If reflection is minimized instead, it becomes activism, and dialogue is impossible. Both of those dichotomies create inauthentic ways of thinking. To exist humanely is to pronounce the word, to change it. Saying the word is not a privilege of a few, but a right of everyone. No one can say the true word alone or state it to someone else. It is in the encounter of people that they transform themselves by pronouncing the word. Thus, dialogue is an existential requirement. It is an act of creation. Dialogue is also love, which commits to the cause of liberation. There must be an intense faith in humankind, faith that they have the power to make and remake, in their vocation to be more fully human. Without this faith, dialogue is a farce. There is no authentic dialogue if there is no critical thinking. Program content of education. The fundamental objective is to fight with the people for the recuperation of their stolen humanity, not to conquest them. Thus, knowledge cannot simply be delivered. The individuals who the program content is for must be taken into consideration. It is important to dialogue with them about their views and our views of the world. The investigation of the generative themes and its methodology. The methodology of the investigation must be dialogical. Investigators cannot judge themselves as the sole knowledgeable subjects of the investigation, and must instead allow for the possibility of discovering generative themes while stimulating people's awareness of these themes. The investigation of the thematic universe involves the investigation of the people's thinking that emerge in people and among themselves, always referring to the reality, their vision of the world wherein they find themselves involved in their generative themes. The situations represented must be known to the individuals that the thematic universe is after, allowing for them to recognize themselves in the situations. Just like the problem-posing education, the objective in these investigations must also be for individuals to surpass the level of real consciousness to that of potential consciousness. An indispensable theme is the anthropological concept of culture and the debate of this concept, which is the starting point of individuals' research to know more. The important thing, from the perspective of a libertarian education, is that, in any case, the people come to feel like masters of their own thinking by discussing the thinking and views of the world explicitly or implicitly, manifest in their own suggestions and those of their comrades.